Give us a sense of what really did happen in Iowa, and how does it affect what's going on in New Hampshire, if at all?
Look, it's still a little bit unclear what happens in Iowa, David. I think what's going on is that people have just moved on, that, in fact, that kind of got swallowed up. There's a debate tonight in New Hampshire, as you said, at St. Anselm's College, where people are going to get a chance. But I think something's really changed in this race, David, and it had something to do with the debacle in Iowa, but I think it's much broader than that. I think what happened this week is that everybody in the Democratic Party realized, oh my goodness, Donald Trump can get reelected, and that whoever is going to be the Democratic nominee is going to have to beat Donald Trump, and that every policy discussion, as important as those policy discussions are between the different health care plans, between the different Green New Deals, between education plans and plans to revive a living wage, the question is this: if we can't beat Donald Trump, aren't all of those policy discussions moot? And if we're going to beat Donald Trump, we're going to have somebody who can take him on the economy, because he keeps talking about how good he is on the economy. And the Democratic candidate is going to have to show that Mr. Trump's a liar, that he was a fake businessman, that he failed as a business person, and that he's actually lying about the American economy. If that doesn't happen, Donald Trump can get reelected. And I have 30 years building a business that could not have succeeded if I didn't understand how to create jobs, how to create growth and prosperity. Look, this isn't a couple years at McKinsey. This is a 30-year history where I was absolutely dependent on being able to answer that. And I can take Donald Trump down on the debate stage because he's a fake, and I can show it.
And I want to come back to what President Trump said at that State of the Union address about the economy, because what you're saying is not that dissimilar from what the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, said. But first, in order to beat Donald Trump, you have to get people to turn out to vote. Are you concerned that the voter turnout in Iowa was lower than what people thought it would be? It was actually lower than 2008. It was on line, I think, with 2016. Does that bother you? You don't have the passion from the voters?
David, there's no question in my mind that whoever the Democratic candidate is going to be, if he or she intends to beat Donald Trump, it's going to be dependent on a good turnout from the diverse Democratic Party. If we don't have that, we cannot beat him. And whoever is going to be the candidate has to be able to attract that diverse turnout, because we're a diverse party, thank God. But we have to have the Black community supporting us, the Latino community supporting us, the Asian American community, the AAPI community supporting us. We need turnout. And whoever is going to be the candidate has got to appeal across the spectrum. If you look at South Carolina, I'm doing it with the Black community there. You can look at the numbers. I was at 25% in a poll yesterday in the Black community. If you look at Nevada, I'm doing it with the Latino community. I have a long history with those communities. If you want to beat Donald Trump as a Democratic candidate, you've got to be able to pull together that diverse coalition, and you've got to ask, can the people who are running do it?
Well, Tom, I'm glad you raised that, because I was going to ask you about specifically South Carolina and Nevada, where you are doing much better than you did in Iowa, or it appears you're doing in New Hampshire. Why is it? What is the appeal that you think you have, or perhaps more important, the things you're saying has to the African Americans in South Carolina and the Hispanics in Nevada?
It's not just what I'm saying, David. It's what I've done for the last 35 years. We've been working to support immigrants to this country for 35 years without asking about papers. My wife and I started a bank that's dedicated to the idea of supporting businesses owned by women, Black people, and Latinos. That's 15 years ago. That's not me making something up. That bank's gone from zero to over $1 billion. I don't have to claim that I work on racial justice issues. I talk about race. I'm for reparations. Sure, that's different from everybody else who's running. But it's also a long-term commitment to racial justice, a willingness to talk about it. I'm a big climate bug, right? You know that.
Yep.
But I talk about climate in terms of Black and brown communities, that you start in the places where America concentrates its poison. Those tend to be African American and Latino communities where it's unsafe to breathe or to drink the water that comes out of the tap. You start in those communities, you solve climate. I'm saying there's a racial element to virtually every policy area. It's true. Most people won't talk about it. I not only talk about it, I'll talk about what we need to do to repair it and to move forward together.
Tom, let me come back to what you said about needing to beat President Trump on the economy, and you said that the president doesn't always tell the truth. Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, said something like that about the State of the Union address. Go back to that State of the Union address. The president said an awful lot about the economy, about good things going in the economy. You and I both know some of that is true. The economy is doing well. Employment is up. How do you really respond to President Trump? He has a very big megaphone. What he says is not inaccurate. Sometimes he picks and chooses what years he's reporting on. But how do you respond to that as a practical matter? Nancy Pelosi tore up the speech. What's your equivalent to that?
David, this is a Mar-a-Lago economy. If you play 18 at Mar-a-Lago and repair to the bar afterwards for 2 or 3 martinis, this is your kind of economy. All the money's going to the rich people. There's low unemployment, but you can't live on the jobs this economy produces. The growth is all going to the rich people. So in fact, the stock market goes up because of big tax breaks for big corporations. Did you see Amazon is paying a 1% tax? The company owned by the richest man in the world is paying a 1% tax? That's outrageous, and it's typical Mar-a-Lago behavior, as a matter of fact. What we're seeing is an economy where the stock market goes up and it helps rich people, where unemployment goes down and people have to work 2 jobs, where the people at Mar-a-Lago are holding a constant New Year's celebration because every day is a celebration there. But if you travel around the United States and see what's happening to working people, it's a disaster. And Mr. Trump's going to make it worse because he said the way he's paying for his tax cuts to his friends at Mar-a-Lago and the big corporations is by cutting health care, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Those are things that absolutely cannot ever be considered. And that's what he's going to do. He's going to hurt working Americans across the board so the people at Mar-a-Lago can have a better New Year's Eve celebration.
Tom, you said the priority, you've been consistent about this, priority is beating Donald Trump come November, without a doubt. And you said you would support any of the other candidates. In other words, you believe it should be you think you have the best chance of beating him, but you'd support any of them. At the same time, how do you make a decision as you go through your strategy about how to really distinguish yourself from your rivals, your Democratic rivals, without reducing the chance they might ultimately win if, in fact, they got the nomination? You have an ad out right now, 60-second ad. This is only 15 seconds of it, but you push off of Joe Biden and you push off Pete Buttigieg pretty hard. Just play this 15 seconds.
If we don't do something different this time around, he'll win again. That's the hard truth. We simply can't afford to nominate another insider or an untested newcomer who doesn't have the experience to beat Trump on the economy. We need to think different.
So, Tom, in your own mind, as you show those images of Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg, how do you trade off that delicate balance, really, about you need to establish why you're different from them, why you're a better candidate, without taking down their chances of prevailing in November if they should be the nominee?
Look, every single Democrat is better on every single policy area than Mr. Trump. I will support any Democrat, if it's not me, 100%. I don't think it's a secret that Joe Biden has been in Washington, D.C. for 50 years. I don't think I'm saying anything that's not true and that everybody doesn't already know. I don't think it's a secret that Pete Buttigieg is 38 years old. Everybody knows that. We have to ask ourselves as Democrats, how are we going to beat Donald Trump? Who can beat Donald Trump? Who can take him down on the economy? Has to happen. Who can pull together a diverse coalition and get people to the polls? Has to happen. I think we've got to confront that openly, and we can't pretend it's not true in hopes that we won't deal with the real issue and it will go away. It's not going away. That's the point of this week, David. We have to confront the fact that Mr. Trump can be reelected, that he is a dangerous and skillful demagogue, and that we're going to have to take him down on the debate stage, and we're going to have to convince diverse Americans across the country and across the board that this is the year that everybody has to show up together to beat this guy. That's the task. Let's deal with the truth here. Let's not pretend it's not true.